If you're like us, then it's been hard to keep track of time, and the days seem to run together. When you hardly leave the house and your schedule's all mixed up, it can be hard to even remember what day it is. Thankfully, we have a calendar, social media, and the love of pop culture nostalgia to help us out. Whether the 4th was with you or not, every day is holiday here. This is Way Back Attack.
My name is Brian Grantham, and sitting across from me, as always, is Preston Burt. Preston, are you ready to live in the fandom zone?
I would argue that I have already lived there for a long, long time, but for the purposes of this episode, yes, I will agree that I am ready to live in the fandom zone. How about you, Brian?
I always live in some type of fandom zone. You never know which one it's going to be, but it's always
it varies.
Mm-hmm. We kind of decided to do this episode because do you know what today is? Not the day that you're listening or watching this, but the day that we're recording. Do you know what today is, Preston?
No, I have no idea.
Today is Revenge of the 5th. It is the day after May the 4th. So.
Oh, how awful! That's so cringe-tastic. What do you do that's different for Revenge of the 5th than May the 4th? Anything?
Well, I know today's just a day to be dirty and evil.
Okay.
I did not do any research, and in line with saying grandiose things with authority, I'm going to say that May the 4th was started by the fans, and then corporate Disney took it over and tainted it, and so the fans took the 5th, and that's why.
There you go.
Yeah, so.
Well, I like that theory, Brian. I'm going to go with it too. I'll say that is now fact.
All right. So, today's May the 5th. Yesterday was May the 4th, of course. And then late last month, we also had another fan day, Alien Day. It's April 26th. And so I figured with all of these different holidays that are going on right now, it'd be, I guess, a good time to kind of talk about them and see what your favorite memories are from these treated nice little pastimes of ours and memories of ours, and our slave to these properties and how corporations are willing to pluck every dime and penny from us in order to make sure that we remember.
Well, and you did a little research, so you got a little history on a couple of these things, which I wasn't aware of at all. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And one of the properties we're talking about, I didn't even know they had a day for it. So you're schooling me all over the place. This is your episode pretty much. I'm just along for the ride. I'm here to share some memories. But you were thinking about different celebratory days or pastimes or holidays, and there's a wide range of the spectrum. I mean, so there's holidays that everyone remembers and celebrates. There's 4th of July if you're in the States. There's, Christmas and Easter, religious holidays. There's Ramadan. There is St. Patrick's Day. There's that kind of stuff. There's like B-level holidays too. There's like Flag Day or Earth Day. Yeah. And then there's just these made up ones, right? And I'm not talking about the ones we're talking about today. I'm talking about the ones where you can go online and you can look up on a calendar of just every single day is at least one, if not multiple different things, like National Pancake Day, Talk Like a Pirate Day, and or even Pie Day. Some of this stuff has a little cult following to it, but no one, there's no State Department that issued a decree that today is Bigfoot Celebration Day or whatever it's going to be. And we're going to look into some of those, but mostly around the pop culture properties. So I did a little digging. I was familiar with some, but there were actually a few that I really didn't even know existed. And so I guess we can reveal the cat is out of the bag. We're going to be talking about, obviously, uh, May the 4th. We're going to be talking
Mm-hmm.
about some Star Wars stuff, and then another major space property in a minute. But I was surprised to learn that there was a holiday set aside for Back to the Future Day. Now, technically, Back to the Future Day was one specific day in October 21st, 2015. Because what was that? What was that day, Brian?
That was the day that Doc and Marty went back to the future.
You got it. Yeah, so that's if you look on their flux capacitor or time settings in the DeLorean, that was the day listed of when they go to the future. But it's already happened, but it doesn't matter. October 21st is the day that they're going to continue to celebrate Back to the Future. And I think that's pretty cool. Although I would argue, while I love that movie, I don't know if it's a deserving of an annual celebration, unlike some of these other properties that we're going to be talking about, like Star Wars, that
Mm-hmm.
constantly is putting out new stuff these days, between cartoons and movies to books and everything. Back to the Future is pretty compact in its pop culture.
But that's a good
Another
thing.
one. What?
That's a good thing
Oh,
because like they have said, that they don't want any remakes done or anything. Like I think like Back to the Future is like a perfect trilogy, and there was some when we were kids there were some like side things like the cartoon and the comic book and stuff like that. But
hmm
I think I would hate for them to like keep telling the
yeah,
side
it's like a
tales
time capsule right now, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's kind of contained.
Yeah.
So, hey, but I appreciate people's passion for Back to the Future. So, hey, more power to you. Here's one that's kind of a stretch, dude. And that is March 10th. And you are supremely related to video game culture. So you obviously know what March 10th is. But for our listeners,
Mhm.
please explain March 10th and its significance.
It is the day of all things Mario, and
Because,
because Mario is March 10th, and so every day on March 10th you have to wake up and be like, "It's a me, Brian."
oh, I almost spewed my drink everywhere. Yeah. So is that what you do in your house, or is that like,
I do that every day. I'm just saying everybody should do it on March 10th.
okay. All right, I'll have to imagine that. It's a me, Preston. Okay, so March 10th. Now, I don't know when. I didn't have the research on the March 10th date as to
Mhm.
when that kind of first gained ground among fans, but I do know that it wasn't until 2016 that Nintendo like officially jumped on the bandwagon and realized, hey, we got a good thing going here that we didn't even have to do. People are all over it. Let's celebrate it. So they released some video on their official YouTube channel that year, and then they've just been rolling with it ever since and doing celebration and special promotions and all kinds of things. So lean into it with that, I guess. Um, Now, my favorite of these made up days has a longer history due to
Mhm.
superstition, and that is Friday the 13th. Now, what's great about Friday the 13th is that it was considered an unlucky day for whatever. 13 is an unlucky number.
Mhm.
I don't know what made Friday the 13th
It's the
unlucky. I
13th day
didn't
of the
do
week.
any research on this whatsoever. I'm just here to say that I'm glad that now the it's not considered an unlucky day, or if it is, it's kind of tongue in cheek, and more it's a celebration of like horror and specifically the Friday the 13th movies
Mhm.
and Jason Voorhees and so forth. And the best part of that holiday is that sometimes you get it multiple times a year.
Mhm.
I don't know the math on how often it comes around, and it's never on the same like it's never the same day of the month. Or sorry, it's never the same month necessarily. It
Right.
rotates because of the calendar and all this stuff. So it's kind of for me, it's like a surprise because I'm not really counting my calendar days, and then like 2 days before the Friday the 13th, someone will be like, "Oh, it's Friday the 13th." I'm like, "Sweet! I gotta go check Shutter and see what they're playing, or go pull out the old Jason tapes." You?
I also like Friday the 13th, and I have a customer that will come up to my store, and he always has a Friday the 13th shirt that he wears every time that Friday the 13th rolls around. And he normally will not come on Fridays, but he does it just for that day, just to show me a shirt. So,
Well, when big media takes over Friday the 13th
mm-hmm.
promotion, just like Star Wars took over May the 4th, you better guarantee that the fans are going to retaliate and start celebrating Saturday the 14th, and it's going to be nothing but appreciation for that horrible 80s movie of the same name, Saturday the 14th. Did you ever see that one, Brian?
I remember seeing it in video stores. I always thought it was like a comedy. Was it not a
It
comedy?
is a a comedy. It's pretty bad. I think you can watch it for free streaming places. It's not it's one of these where if you watched it as a kid, it was enjoyable back then. When you're watching it as a almost 40-year-old man, doesn't really hold up that well. But hey, to each their own.
It's not as good as Scary Movie.
No.
It's more of a Meatballs.
Oh, yeah. You're going to get some angry fan letters from the Meatballs crew, man.
Okay.
Anyway. Last day I had, that was a celebration of fandom, not just a random talk like a pirate day or soup day or some weirdness. But this kind of speaks to what we're talking about today, wherein this was fan based.
Mm-hmm.
But what's great about it is it's a hijacked holiday. So Amazon Prime, they are in all aspects of media now. And so they have Prime Day. And that's a day where they celebrate and offer deals on Prime for all kinds of products and stuff. Well, the Transformers fans picked up on that and realized that, hey, everybody's talking about Prime. They're obviously talking about Optimus Prime, who gave his life for us so we could celebrate great deals on this fantastic day. So I love that it's a tongue-in-cheek look at the Transformers and a hijacked holiday for Transformers fan to glom on and push all things Transformers into those social streams instead of everything Amazon related.
Now, do you think that this was actually Transformers fans, or do you think Hasbro has a toe in this?
No, I think it was fans.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised to see Hasbro glom onto this, just like the other corporations. And I don't know if I mentioned I don't know if this is a changing date either, but the last date on record for this I think I have was September 13th. So that one's coming up pretty soon. September 13th. You can get your Transformers love on. Love you some Transformers, some Optimus Prime. Put that on your calendar.
You've got to get some of those Masterpiece Transformers all set up.
Which ones?
All the Masterpiece ones. You have one?
I got this guy. I pulled him out the other day. This guy is the highly articulated. I've had him. I used to teach school, and he was a good icebreaker for kids who didn't want to talk when they were a lot younger. So they love Optimus Prime. Everybody loves Optimus Prime. Hence, he has a whole day now.
Did they have to like hold it up in front of them and be like, "I am Lee, the child, and I'm happy to be here in your class, Mr. Burt"?
No, I can't say they did that, but I did lure a young child out from underneath a desk with him once, so it worked. Whoa. More power to him.
All right, well.
So that was the last of my days that I discovered. I already knew about May the 4th, but you taught me another one too. So let's talk about these two big ones.
Yes, definitely. So starting off, like you were talking about with all these other days and everything like that, how I would say that the biggest day that I knew of when it first started was May the 4th. And, I got to throw it back to my girl Maggie. If you know who I'm talking about, I hope you're ready.
Who are you talking about, Brian?
I am talking about Margaret Thatcher. So,
hey, you do know that we actually have a soundboard, so you can actually make an air horn sound.
Well, I have a good soundboard that I haven't set up yet, so eventually I won't have to do that with my mouth. But May the 4th is often known as Star Wars Day. But the first documented case of someone saying May the 4th be with you was In 1979, on the day that Margaret Thatcher was elected Britain's first woman prime minister, her party took out a newspaper ad in the London Evening News that said, "May the 4th be with you, Maggie. Congratulations." So, I hold a kinship with Margaret Thatcher. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this before, have I?
No.
Okay.
I must know more details.
Do you know where she's from?
Great Britain?
She is from Grantham, England.
So,
yeah. So I've always loved it that she was. I assume that my family was at some point as well. Either that or we're the royal Granthams from Downton Abbey, and so I'm happy with either of those. Nice. I like to imagine one day I'll go to England and go. If I ever do, I will definitely go to Grantham, England, and then I'll like sign something, and someone will be like, "Oh, it's the long lost Grantham," and then I'll be given my throne. It'll be great. So anyways, that was the earliest time that someone changed force into 4th, documented at least. And so, but anyways, back in May 4th, 2011 was the first time that a major event was held by fans. And so you had the Toronto Underground Cinema on May 4th, 2011. They, Sean Ward and Alice Quint organized a celebration, which included an original trilogy trivia game show, a celebrity judge costume contest, and Star Wars tribute films and parodies and stuff like that. So that was the first big fan-led event that really kind of made May the 4th a big thing. And then the next big moment for Star Wars May the 4th happened just last year, Preston. And
really?
It actually happened on May the 2nd. But we're going to rewrite history here, folks.
Okay, we do that a lot on this show.
I've got some documents, and we're changing it to May the 4th. So the state of California's legislature voted and officially declared May the 4th as Star Wars Day in recognition of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opening later in the month of May. So
if it was already opening later in the month, like if it wasn't already falling on May the 4th, why not just make the declaration on May the 4th? I don't get it. That's poor planning.
Hey, that's government for you. Ayo! I don't know. Why not? It probably took 2 days for the paperwork, all the bureaucracy and the paperwork to get cleared. So, but yeah, so that's basically how May the 4th, a short little history of how government has been intertwined with May the 4th since the beginning. So,
oh, wow. We should start a whole podcast just about that. That'd be fantastic.
You think the fans started it, folks. It's really the government. They're turning the Yodas weird. So,
take the tinfoil hat off, Brian. Get back on track.
All right. Well,
now
go for it.
So May the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine we'll get more into this, but I like that the first thing that was a true celebration of May the 4th was an actual event. Like it was some real celebration with things to do, things to see, games to play. It wasn't just a hashtag on social media, which Disney will now legally own your reply to. I don't know that people actually do things for May the 4th other than social media these days, but it's nice to see that it originally started off with something good like that.
Yeah, and man, it is so funny because when in setting up for this episode, I watched some interviews with the people that started Alien Day, and it has to be a fairly recent interview because they talk about quarantining and stuff like that. But they talk about how toxic Star Wars culture is. And are you like on Twitter? So back, I used to have Twitter. I got rid of it. And then when I started writing stuff for the Roarbots, I was like, well, I should have a Twitter to help promote that stuff, right? And so I made Twitter again. And I must have like just been like it must have been suggesting things like, oh, what are you interested in? And I must have typed in Star Wars, but somehow I was sucked into Star Wars fandom. And so I
Oh my
see all this
gosh.
beef all the time with all these people.
Dude, Star Wars Twitter is insane. I'm glad I'm only tangentially related to it because of some of the people I follow.
Right.
Because if I was immersed in all that stuff, it really is. It's become so toxic, especially with like the hate towards filmmakers and actresses and stuff like that. And then people just hating on the fandom in general.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
You know,
we can get into some of that stuff, but yeah, it's a hot mess on social media.
I get that it is a big property, right? And so you're going to have all types of people that are into it, and then you're going to have people that get in. Like I learned about shipping through the Star Wars fan culture or fandom, and so like it's just there's just so many avenues just because it's a big property, and before I was ever like introduced to it on social media, you would see bits and pieces of stuff like that, like on, I don't know, like DeviantArt or like just different websites where maybe forums, like you would get like an occasional like peek in behind the curtain on that kind of stuff. But yeah, that like fandoms are crazy. And the main ones that I was ever used to before the past couple years was, growing up, I played video games my whole life. And so growing up, I was like, you always hear about people talking about like, oh yeah, Nintendo's the best and Sega sucks and, stuff like that. And so, they've always been there, but now with social media and everything like that, everything's just given such like a megaphone in order to like scream out everything about it.
Yeah, it really has. But as much as I'm not necessarily on the Star Wars rah bandwagon right now. I appreciate that there is an outlet for people who are fans and extreme fans to be able to have an outlet of expression and celebration. But man, right, all I see right now is just corporate greed and the May the 4th hashtag being all through social media. It just reeks of just consumerism and awfulness. And I know I'm an old man shaking my fist at a cloud right now, but for me, Star Wars was a simpler time. Star Wars was a time when there were only 3 movies, and we were looking forward to something new. This is the sweet spot for me, was knowing that the Star Wars universe existed, having seen all of the films, all of the 3 original films, and then getting just like little glimpses here and there of extended universe stuff. So when we were younger, we had the Ewoks movies, right? Like they were great for kids. I'm sure they're horrible now, but I was the target demographic. So those things were awesome. I loved any little extra bit I could get so that I could add some storytelling elements to my toys. And then in the early 90s, when the books came out, Heir to the Empire, Timothy Zahn, that was like revelatory of, oh my gosh, Star Wars is still happening. And it's funny because, as you get older, time has a different meaning and it moves at a different pace. It really does. I know your parents said that when you were a kid, but it really does. And so when you're a kid and there has been Star Wars, and then there was a period of 7 years without Star Wars.
Right.
Those 7 years felt like an eternity. And so when something like the Heir to the Empire series comes up and reignites that Star Wars, which you thought was completely dead, it was amazing. And then a few years later, we might be getting toys again. What? Toys? And you got the Power of the Force action figures coming out, and there was the collector fever for that. And you got figures for creatures that they never made an action figure for before. You got a little expanded universe through some comic books. It was really, really great time. And then for me, it was kind of the culmination and the implosion of my Uber fandom was Star Wars Episode 1. And it's not me crapping on the movie. It really isn't. before that movie, like even in college, so this is like 1998, 99, before the movie came out, my roommate and best friend at the time, Robert, and I could go through the whole deck of Star Wars Trivial Pursuit cards.
Yeah.
And we could be on a long card or something, and we could go through those, and I could tell you every single answer to those things. I was that much of a Star Wars head. And then when Episode 1 came out, we didn't camp out necessarily, but we got there super early and, waited in a long, long, long line to get our tickets before that, advance tickets. And it was a celebration. It was so cool to see some Star Wars elements depicted on screen again, fresh and new. And admittedly, it was a bit of I had some blinders on at the time to not see some of the worst elements of that movie. But it was just like an implosion of so much buildup for me that I don't think I could ever replicate that excitement again. And now it's just, I don't know. It just seems like noise.
How many of the Star Wars books did you read?
I read a lot of them. I've got I probably have a few on my shelf right now. I can step away in a second and get a couple. But I was a member of a like, seriously, if anybody ever doubts how much of a geek I was, I mean, I can just list off things like I was a member of a science fiction book club. There was like Columbia House and all those things. Well, there was also a book club for sci-fi geeks. So I had a membership to that, and I would use a lot of my monthly things to get Star Wars books. So I read the whole Heir to the Empire. I read, some of the Mara Jade stuff and I don't know. Anyway, I was a big geek. The end. I read a lot.
I was not a huge Star Wars kid. I was more into the Alien universe when I was a child, that and horror, which makes sense for Alien stuff. But I did read one Star Wars book, and it was the novelization of the Phantom Menace.
Oh no!
It was actually pretty good. There was stuff in the book that wasn't in the movie. That's how it goes. And so, and I really liked, if I remember correctly, I think on the cover of that book, I think it just had like Darth Maul's face or whatever. But yeah.
I only had one on the shelf that I could easily grab, and that was Star Wars: The New Rebellion hardback. But I have all of these. I love the ones that were, of course, extensions of the main heroes from Star Wars that you knew and loved. So Luke, Leia, Han, all those guys. You want to know what they're doing after the fact, right?
Yeah. It's funny, like, because I read tons of sci-fi books also. Like, it was funny because when, last week I talked about working at Walden Books, and in my interview, I was asked what kind of books I read. And so, I said, like a lot of, Steve Perry and Stephanie Perry and stuff like that, because they wrote other things other than just the Alien books. But that was the thing, like all these, like I read these books like crazy when I was a kid. So, but I really didn't get into Star Wars until I was like 17. Like I had seen the movies, but
that's so weird that you didn't get into Star Wars till you're 17. Tell me more.
Like I had seen the movies obviously when I was a kid because they were like huge classics, right? But growing up, I was more of like a Disney kid, and then so like most of the movies, like Flight of the Navigator was huge for me when I was a kid, and just like different stuff like that. And so it wasn't something that I ever really thought about. And like I said, I was more into horror stuff, like I had, Nightmare on Elm Street was like one of my favorite series when I was a kid. And I had, back when they only had 5 movies, I had a VHS collector's box that only had 5 slots in it, and so I kept all 5 of my Nightmare on Elm Street movies in it. And then like anytime we would go someplace, before I had that filled, anytime we'd go someplace, I always look for whichever. Oh, I'm missing 3. I need 3. Whatever. And so like like in '91, Freddy's Dead came out, and like my mom and I went and saw that in theaters because I was such a huge Freddy fan. But I liked when it came to space stuff, it was more aliens and that kind of thing. But when I moved out from my house, I was 17, and the way that it happened was, I had just moved. I had recently moved to Alabama. I had moved back up there from Key West, and I was hanging out with some people at a coffee shop, and someone said, "Hey, you want to come over and watch the Star Wars trilogy?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so, it was late at night, and we were watching like one movie a night or whatever, and then after the movie we would play that Trivial Pursuit, the Star Wars Trivial Pursuit that you're talking about. And so I just started sleeping there. And then after 3 nights, like, it was a 1-bedroom apartment, and there was 3 of us that wound up living there. And so, like, one person slept in the bedroom, and then somebody else slept on the couch, and then I slept on the floor because I was the third person that showed up. And so that's how, like, I got in with this crew, was by watching Star Wars. And I was shocked to know, when we played that Trivial Pursuit game, I knew a lot about Star Wars, and a lot of those questions are really like not fair questions. It'd be like, how many rats are in the jail cell and on Jabba's palace and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, super deep stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of these things you'd only know if you collected other Star Wars stuff. Like, if you just watched the movies, you wouldn't know this, but if you read the comic books, or if you were like diehard into the trading card collectible game or something that told you all these extra things, you'd be like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And I played all the games, so like I got like bits and pieces from the expanded universe, with like all the Dark Forces games, and then the stuff that came out on PC and 64 and that kind of stuff. But when I was a kid, there was a really cool thing that I found. This is 3rd or 4th grade. That's not me, if you're watching the video. But in 3rd or 4th grade, I lived in Vestavia Hills, like right outside Birmingham in Alabama, and we had a creek that ran from like this golf course like near like to my neighborhood, and me and my friends used to hang out in the creek all the time. And one day I found that lightsaber, and it was
you found it in the creek?
I did. I found it in the creek, and I kept
That's so crazy.
It was awesome. And basically,
I only found hepatitis in my creek.
Well, things I've heard about Gainesville, but so in my head it was a Empire Strikes Back thing, but I tried finding pictures of it, and it's only like this droids from the Droids cartoon show, and it was basically a flashlight that had a spring-loaded blade, and so it was like those, like, you remember those like knife toys when you're a kid that the blade is on a spring and you could stab it into people and stuff like that. And so I think what the idea was for you to put the red blade part into the hilt, and then when you hit a button, that pops out and it lights up, the flashlight turns on. But what I like doing with it, because the electronics didn't work because it was in a creek, was I could go around stabbing people with this essentially lightsaber dagger. And so that was the best thing about this toy, was that it would just like go back in. So I don't remember me really having it outside of the living in Birmingham. So I must have either thrown it away at some point when I was living there, or when we moved down to Tampa after living up there for a couple years. But that toy was pretty dope.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. The only other like really big thing that, like, memory that I have that relates at all to Star Wars is I have some friends that were living in Alabama, and when episode 1 was coming out, Yum Brands, all of their restaurants, they had the deal with I guess Pepsi as a whole had the deal with Star Wars. And so Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC, like all those restaurants had marketing and stuff like that. And so apparently, from what I've been told, they went around one night and just went on a spree of like snagging as much of this memorabilia that they could, because they were huge fans of it. And so the Pizza Hut ones from what I hear, were the easiest to get. These pictures are not ones of their stuff. I talked to them the other day when we were setting this up, and they said that they don't have any of the stuff anymore. But basically, they had these like race flags lining the outside of the hut part of the Pizza Hut. And so they just grabbed one of that and then just like ran, and like all the staples like popped off, and then they had like a whole strip of like these like flags that each flag has Star Wars Episode 1 and then a character's face from the movie. And then so they got that from there, from Taco Bell. They got two different things from two different Taco Bells in town. One of them was this there was like some poster and some outside thing, and they couldn't figure out how to get it out, and so they threw the poster, they threw this whole like fixture in the trunk of their car and took off with it. And so eventually they figured out how to get rid of, or how to take it out, and so then they got rid of the fixture. But the piece de resistance of their collection was this 24-foot wide, I think it was like 4 foot tall by 24 feet wide banner that hung in front of Taco Bell. And it was like,
oh my word,
it was this one on this like main road, and it was being held up by this like steel cable. And apparently they climbed up on top of the roof and then like had this like old dull knife that they were using to like try to, because they didn't know it was going to be the steel cable holding it on. And so they sat there for like half an hour like cutting at this cable to like get this thing to come down. So so that was, they had that up in their apartment, you know, and it was not a very big apartment. And so like it wrapped around.
Did it wrap
like,
the wall? Yeah.
Yeah. It was like on multiple walls. From KFC, they got this like R2D2 thing off the drive-through menu. I think like it was like, it has R2D2, but like in the dome there, it like had the toys or whatever that they were giving away. But that was really like the
a night of bedlam.
Yes. You know, like I would have been like very upset if I managed those places, like going to work the next day and be like, where's this giant poster? But part of me would have been like, yeah, like, of course it's Star Wars, right? Because like people even back then were crazy for Star Wars. But then, you know, all that stuff gets thrown away anyways. So, or I guess some of it doesn't, because those pictures that I pulled, like people bought those things online. So somebody, maybe that's where they got them from. So,
yeah, I'm trying to think, and I'm trying to compare. When The Force Awakens came out, that was the first of the new trilogy, right?
No, of this time.
Of this, yeah.
The Force Awakens, yes.
Okay, and then they had just recently The Last Jedi, right?
The Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of
was
Skywalker,
the most recent one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think. Obviously, there's going to be a huge marketing push, but I can't. I really think it pales in comparison to the 1999 opening of Phantom Menace. I mean, when we say the marketing was everywhere, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know that. And as hard as they push it now, I don't know that it will ever rise to that level, because the fever for it was just so great.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is when I read somewhere that the marketing campaign for that movie was only like $11 million. And they said that they didn't want to overdo it. They only wanted to give the fans what the fans wanted. They didn't want to crowd the marketplace with it.
Okay, so the marketing budget may have only been 11 million, but the partnership with food companies and whatever, the merchandising and the whatever licensing, that's a different thing. But it was an advertisement itself, so they can claim only $11 million. But all told, it was probably like $500 million of just pure rancor for Star Wars.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was everywhere, and so I don't know, like but like you said, everyone was super excited about it,
Yeah.
And they had it wasn't like it went no movies at all since like 80. What was Jedi 83?
83, yeah.
And so it wasn't like nothing from 83 to 99. You know, Lucas had put out the remakes, and so I saw all those in theater. So
Yeah,
technically, I've
that
seen
was
every
great.
movie in
That was
theater.
a lot of fun. Special
Mm-hmm.
edition in theater. Oh man, that was hype. I loved it.
Yeah.
You know what I don't get now is when it. I don't know. I can look this up. When is Celebration? Star Wars Celebration. That's an annual event, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. I don't know because D23 is different, right? D23 is just basically
That's Disney.
just Disney.
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
But I feel like Star Wars stuff. I mean, you know, I get that they own it now, but I feel like Star Wars stuff happens during D23 also.
Now I know why they don't have it on the same day, because having more days is just another. You know, it just saturates further the promotion. But like, for me, I'm going to request that maybe Disney can just move Celebration to May the 4th to just consolidate and make it a little bit easier for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen because the next thing that we talk about is going to, you have fans of this that feel like they have been sadly taken advantage of. But Preston, do you hear that?
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. The fuck?
Oh no, I do. That doesn't sound good.
So basically, what that means is it's game time.
Oh.
So what we're going to do is we are going to have 5 different fandom holidays and the dates associated with these fandom holidays. And the one of them I know you're going to know because we already talked about, but some of these I really feel like are stretching it, and it's not. These are like some grassroots fandom holidays that have not hit the mainstream yet for at least one of these. So basically, you know, we have February 14th, 2016. I just put the year on these dates just because it's what is referenced in the movie. But you know, obviously just the month and date are the days that we are celebrating here. So we have February 14th, 2016, April 5th, 2063, June 5th, 1985, August 29th, 1997, and October 21st, 2015. And we have pictures of Back to the Future, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Terminator, Star Trek, and Ghostbusters 2. So, Preston, I am going to task you with matching the dates to the property.
Okay, so we already discussed Back to the Future Day was October 21st, 2015.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I was thinking the Bill Murray one that's Ghostbusters, right?
That is Ghostbusters 2.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with.
Wait, well, what'd you think? Oh, you thought it was gonna be Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be Groundhog Day at first.
I almost did it, but I was like, that's too simple.
Yeah, well, the February date was throwing me off. So that's from Ghostbusters. That's from his psychic thing. So I'm gonna say 2063 on that one.
Okay.
No. I changed my mind.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with 85 on that one. June 5th, 1985. Because I was close to the Ghostbusters time frame, so I bet they were predicting something crazy. Okay. Just like I think the Terminator Day is August 29th, 1997. I think that's when everything blew up.
Okay.
Ferris Bueller, I have no idea. I'm going to assign the February 14th, 2016. I don't know what that would do.
Okay.
But further proof that I am a geek, I know for a fact that April 5th, 2063 is First Contact Day from the movie Star Trek First Contact, when the Vulcans first made contact with the human race. So,
okay.
In case our listeners had any doubt what a dork I was.
Well, good. Well, you know, same results this week as last week. You got 3 out of the 5 right.
Hey, that's
And
better. That's more than half. I'm good.
yeah, and you almost, I mean, I get this is how math works, but if you had gotten 4 of them right, you would have gotten them all right. So
you're telling me if I'd have gotten one more right, I would have gotten 4 right?
no, you would have gotten all
insane.
5 right. You would have gotten one if you had gotten one more right. So, all right. So here are the dates that you picked that were right. Back to the Future Day is in fact October 21st, 2015. Terminator Judgment Day is August 29th, 1997. And
I got that one right.
Yep. And Star Trek First Contact was indeed April 5th, 2063. So the days that you missed were Ferris Bueller's Day Off and the Ghostbusters End of the World. So on that Ghostbusters 2 clip, that's Peter Venkman's psychic show that he has. And the psychic that he's interviewing tells him that the end of the world is in fact going to happen February 14th in 2016. And then he says,
pretty cool.
Valentine's Day, huh? Bummer.
So,
and then Ferris Bueller's Day Off was in fact,
what is that even about, man?
That
I
was
have
the
no
day
idea.
he took off. That was the day of school that he skipped. It was June 5th, 1985. And so
wow.
people celebrate his illustrious day off in remembrance of that day.
Okay, I gotta say, I love Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but I gotta say, out of all of those, that one is the most ridiculous day to celebrate because it's Back to the Future has at least 3 movies. Okay, Terminator has 6 movies now, plus all kinds of toys and crazy things. Star Trek, oh my gosh, it's a bonanza, and Ghostbusters, it's a big property, got a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Ferris Bueller's Day Off, as beloved as that is, I don't know that it needs its entire. I don't know that a 35-year-old movie needs a day of celebration. But hey,
you have to think about. So the reason I picked Ferris Bueller's Day Off was because, so my girlfriend's in a film class in college, and which was great for me because I love movies and she hates them. So it gave us a reason to watch movies, and especially movies that she normally wouldn't watch, and sometimes movies that I wouldn't watch because I personally hate Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's one of those movies I have seen so many times I really could care less about it because it was like one of those movies that was always on every Sunday or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just like, ugh, I hate it. But when she was watching it, she was like, oh my God, this movie's just so full of tropes. And I said, well, yeah, but it like helped create those tropes, like those, all those movies in that universe, right?
Yeah.
So the Hughes verse is a thing, right? So like, all those, that movie, it's just funny looking back on it. And then you also go, oh man, Jeffrey Jones. I had to explain what happened with him. So
same thing when you watch Beetlejuice, you're like, oh, that guy's great. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Well, he was Tim Burton's like It Boy there for a little bit because he was in Sleepy Hollow also. The Sleepy Hollow was the last movie I remembered seeing him in. So
that movie was great. I screened that one at the theater. I love that movie. I got the poster for that still from the movie theater. It's great.
All right. Well, May the 4th, Preston, is not the only. Oh, I guess it's not the only holiday that Disney now owns.
Okay.
Because since Disney bought 20th Century Fox, they now own the Alien franchise, which for me, I'm pretty excited because that means that my Aliens Star Wars Tron crossover can happen, and I cannot wait. So, but April 26th is in fact Alien Day. And Preston, why is it April 26th? Do you know?
Is it something from Prometheus? I don't know.
No. So LV-426 is the alien, is the planet that they go to check out where the aliens are. And so that is the inspiration for the date. Because it's
426, April 26th. Yep. Got it. Okay.
So this was also a grassroots movement to make this thing happen. And basically, you had this guy named Alaric Hahn, who goes by Alaric Sulaco, because I guess in the Alien fandom, everybody, I guess, changes their last name to a ship from Aliens because it was basically started by two different people, and the other one's last name is Nostromo. So I don't know what the deal is with that. But anyways, he started a thing where he had his birthday coming up. His birthday was in April, and he wanted to create a thing, so he had a friend make him a graphic that says Aliens Day, April 26, 2015. And he was going to do a birthday celebration with his friends, and it was going to be where they like screened movies. Or I'm sorry, this movie specifically, Aliens, because that is his favorite alien movie, is Aliens. He's more of an Aliens than an Alien person. And so he that's why it was Aliens Day. And so he made this, and he sent it to like a Louis Nostromo, who is I guess a big person in the alien fandom on social media. And so he shot that out to everybody on his social media, and so then it started building traction and stuff like that. Now, here's where the drama comes in, Preston. So
what?
Every great story has to have a villain, and in this movie, or in this story, the villain is 20th Century Fox.
Oh, no.
So they are both actually they have good emotional intelligence, because instead of saying the 20th Century Fox ripped them off, they will tell you, it is totally possible that they came up with this idea also, that they did not see these social media things. But Louis Nostromo will be quick to point out that Alien Anthology follows him on Instagram, but it is still possible that they never saw the post that he made about it, because the very next year, 20th Century Fox started to do Alien Day 4/26, 2016. And so, hey, who knows? But basically, when Alaric was doing his thing, it started to get some steam from different companies, because NECA picked it up on social and helped promote it and stuff like that too, and in addition to Louis Nostromo. But in 2016, 20th Century Fox, they started the official Alien Day with the Alien Anthology social media page to ramp up the upcoming 40th anniversary in 2019. And so, the fans were loving it, because finally the better franchise had their day also. And so it wasn't just May the 4th, everybody. Now you had 4/26. So
this is cool. I really wasn't aware of this, but learning about it and knowing what it's about, I'm actually on board with this one. I think I've figured out my distaste for the Star Wars stuff these days isn't just oversaturation. It's that over the years, and again, this is a me thing. This is not an everybody else thing. It felt special back in the day to be a Star Wars fan.
Right.
Because it wasn't as mainstream, and not as many people held it as near and dear to their hearts that they were trying to get as much content as they can. And, it's a triumph that so many people have grown to love Star Wars, and their kids have grown to love Star Wars, and it's a thing. So that's great. But it loses a little bit of its specialness, I think, for me, because it's not just something that me and my dorky friends love and can quote back and forth. But with Aliens, I don't know. I know it's a big property. I know people like Aliens, but how much do people really like Aliens? Like, can they tell you the name of Vasquez and Apone and Hicks? Like, do they know all of these different things? I'm all for this fan-led celebration of Aliens. I think that's good. That's cool.
I would say, Star Wars, if you just look at when they were released, I would say the only reason that Alien wasn't as big as Star Wars was because it was a horror movie.
Yeah, it wasn't for kids.
Right. And
yeah.
So, but it still made a lot of impact, because you had people like Mel Brooks, who was putting out in his spoof on Star Wars, he still put in a reference to Alien, because it was such a big it had such big ideas, and the aesthetic to it was great. You know, you had Giger's design of the alien species and stuff like that, and you know, it had to be toned back a little bit for the movie studios, but you know, ultimately, like, it was a wonderful series that was started off. And I think, you know, during that time period, you had a lot of people that were very largely impacted by that series. And then, you know, part 2, when you bring on Cameron, he did his magic to it, you know, with Aliens, and then, you know, turned it from a horror movie into a action movie, you know, while still maintaining some of the tension that was in the other one. You know, you would have to say he moved it forward into that realm where you could bring it in with the kids, you know, because once that happened, you know, it's an easy way for you to bring us that kind of series, right? Aliens doesn't have to be bloody because the aliens don't have blood, right? They got acid. And so you can be spraying stuff everywhere. I mean, granted, there's graphic parts of that movie, but, you know, if you look at 2 compared to 1, like, it's like night and day in terms of like body horror and that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. So you glossed over a little bit, about the Spaceballs and the Mel Brooks. And I'm glad you showed that footage. We talked over it, but that was actually my first exposure to aliens because of what you mentioned, right? So I didn't go see, when did that movie come out? 1979? Yeah. I wasn't even born yet. And much less would I have watched a horror movie like that so young.
Right.
But I did go see Spaceballs. And so I'm sure my parents were laughing it up. And I was just like, what is even happening? When I saw that scene where John Hurt mimics the chest burster, and but then the alien goes on to sing "Hello, my baby, hello, my darling." That was quite a first exposure to something. If you weren't familiar with the property at all.
Yeah. So, have you seen Covenant?
Yes.
Okay. So so it's weird. Like I was a huge fan of Aliens, or the whole Alien franchise. When I was the kid that if my parents had friends over, I had this magazine. It was like a one-off magazine that was like the history of the alien species and like what they do with the eggs when there's no host and like all this stuff. And so like people would come over to the house and I'd be like, let me tell you a little bit about these aliens. And like I would bring this magazine and show it to them and be like, look, when there's no people around, they still let the face huggers get on their faces so they can implant and stuff. And so like I was a huge fan. And you know, there's a Doom wad that basically was like it was like a fan made thing that turns Doom into aliens, and so you have all the weapons, and they used actual sound clips from Aliens. So like you'll come around a corner and it'll be like, check those corners, and stuff like that, right? That was my favorite Doom wad. I was a huge fan.
Wait, I'm sorry. You got it. What is a Doom wad?
It's a .wad is the file type, the file extension for like the mod for Doom.
Oh, so the game Doom.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, when you downloaded the mods, like it would be a WAD. But but like, you know, I read all these books. I love Aliens, and I don't know what happened. Like I liked Prometheus when it came out, but man, I don't understand. Like, so just how impactful the chest burster was in Spaceballs, right? Or in the original Alien, and then in Spaceballs they spoofed it. They like have totally gotten rid of the chest burster. Now the aliens come out like just a tiny little alien, and I don't know, like, you know, I get that Ridley Scott's making them, and I'm happy that he's still doing it, but I wish that you had somebody else making these movies that was not trying to change everything and like retcon stuff in and stuff like that, like, or at least doing it like in a better way, because I just don't understand why they're making the decisions they have. But I digress.
Well, going back to your earlier conversation and how it can acquire fans and young fans.
Yes.
Aliens definitely spoke to me more than Alien or Alien Resurrection.
Right.
And it was because of that whole Space Marine thing.
Yes.
I was a huge fan of G.I. Joe. And so having like a platoon of guys with big guns going to battle aliens was like, chef's kiss. So good.
Yeah.
So good. And then what's funny is Aliens was made in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
It was rated R.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't have seen that movie, but I did. I probably saw it. I didn't see it in 1986. I can guarantee you that. But
right.
I probably rented it on VHS or something, or maybe who knows? Maybe they aired it on like the USA Network or something, and I saw it there first.
Do you have HBO?
Or yeah,
probably. I know
yeah.
that's the first place I saw that one was HBO.
But it's just funny how in the early 90s they took all of these properties that were rated R properties that kids shouldn't, in theory, have been watching, and they made action figures from them. Let's roll that action figure clip.
They're unstoppable, but we've got to give it our best shot. Thunder the Marines! We're the Space Marines. Drake, Ripley, Apone, Bishop, and I'm Hicks, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal. Queen alien breathing down your back? I blast her with the bug rocker. Button heads with a bull alien? Ripley frags him with the turbo torch. Alien invasion problem?
Send in the Marines!
Space Marine figures and alien figures, each sold separately.
Did your ears just explode, or was that just mine?
I think that's just yours. Mine are.
Oh
are
my
nice
gosh,
level.
that was so loud.
They did such a good.
bad.
They did a good job at getting a Hicks sound like.
Oh my gosh! So if you're listening to the podcast and we just exploded your eardrums, sorry about that. We're doing this live. Whew, that was loud. But man, that guy was excited, wasn't he? He loved him some aliens figures.
Did you have these figures?
I did have some of those figures, and they were great. I played with them all the time, and they had the rocket firing stuff too. And for them it worked because they were so much bigger than G.I. Joe's. When G.I. Joe went to those missiles that actually fired, they looked ridiculous because to do so, they had to have these guns that were like way bigger than they were as people. But with the aliens figures, it was kind of proportional. So it was much more believable in my little Preston mind to play with those figures and shoot missiles and stuff. But yeah, I loved it for the Space Marines and for the toys. There were other toys in the 90s where it was, for R-rated properties like RoboCop. They made some.
Well, they did cartoons for all those. There was a Rambo cartoon and a RoboCop cartoon and stuff like that. So,
was there an Aliens cartoon?
There wasn't that I can remember. There were multiple video games, and then you started getting like the Alien versus Predator, like that was on Super Nintendo and Genesis, and then they did like RoboCop versus Alien versus Predator and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure they had comic lines for all those also.
Yeah, Dark Horse was the publisher of the Aliens comic book series, and then they did Aliens versus Predator and that kind of stuff. So they gave you a little fandom love through the comic books.
Yeah, and the cool thing is too, like even in the actual books, like you can't really see it that well here, but this is an Aliens versus Predator book that it was both Steve and Stephanie Perry wrote, and like even like these books. Let me see if there's a date on it. 94. So like even like those books, like they did a good job at like incorporating that stuff all together, before that was like I don't know, that's just like part of the dream, dude. Star Wars, Alien vs Predator, Tron, get them. It's easy. It's just a computer simulation, right? Like come on.
Make it happen.
Yes.
Write that letter. Change.org.
I'll start a petition today. This will be great.
Yes.
I will say, just to go back a little bit to the holiday for Aliens, the fans that were a part of getting this to be a big thing kind of feel burned because since Disney bought 20th Century Fox, They haven't been pushing it the way 20th Century Fox did before that, and I think that it's probably just because it's like a week or week and a half before May the 4th, and so they don't want to like have too many of these too many big celebrations going on at the same time, especially considering that like Star Wars is like their big moneymaker right now.
And plus they're learning the ropes too, right?
Right.
This merger only recently happened, so they got to put their support behind the biggest property first. Maybe they'll branch out and realize they need to support the little ones too.
Yeah. And I will say, because I don't want to get anybody writing us an email saying that it didn't really start with Alaric or whatever, there was an Alien Day in 2009 that it was also called Aliens Day. But it was an event organized by Dark Horse Comics in 2009 that celebrated the relaunch of its Alien Comics line after a 10-year hiatus. And the original event was held May 25th of 2009 because it was exactly 30 years to the day since the original theatrical release of Alien. So
That's
there
awesome.
was an Alien Day, but it was not 426 and stuff like that. So,
well, if you want to celebrate Alien Day on your own, they're still making Alien stuff, even if they're not making Aliens movies right now. NECA just released a whole new line of, classic Aliens figures. And it's funny because it costs more to buy the repros of the Kenner line through NECA than it does to actually go back and buy the original mint and package Kenner figures. You can get some for like $10 plus shipping on eBay. So if you have that itch of nostalgia, Aliens action figures have not reached the zeitgeist level to charge hundreds of dollars for figures. So get in now, because once they hear this episode of Way Back Attack, people will be itching to buy those figures.
Dude, I want them to make a the big 24-inch figures that they do. I want them to do like a Ripley and a power loader, because you can't see it on camera, but I have McFarlane Toys did like this big Alien Queen like set and stuff like that, and like I would kill for like a Ripley and a power loader, or like maybe like a really awesome like Marine with stuff, even this right here.
Give me a whole jar of like Bishop goo, right? Like instead of Ghostbuster slime, give me like a big jug of Bishop goo.
It could even be like an Alexa where it's just like Bishop's head, and he has like white white paint around his mouth. He's like, you get Lance Henriksen to do the voice, and he'll be like, "I order you those things." It'd be awesome. But yeah. So when you look at your calendar, maybe you should look and see what fandom holiday it is. There are actually, if you really care that much about them, when I was looking this up, there are places you can go to buy social media calendars to incorporate into your Outlook calendar that has all of this stuff on it. I'm sure there's free ones too, but there's like every day has a fandom holiday nowadays.
So I made two up. Okay. These are very bad, but I gave myself a brain exercise. I'm like, okay, what are some properties that don't have a day that could use a day? Mm-hmm. And so we talked about Friday the 13th having one, because it's Friday the 13th. So they just lucked out and get the property to associate with the movie. So they're good. Where's the love for Freddy? So I think because of alliteration and because he's got 5 razor sharp claws, I think that we should have February 5th be Freddy Krueger Day. Mm-hmm. All right, so write that down. We're going to try to remember that and bring that back on February 5th.
Well, hold on one second. What's his address? I bet his address is like 926 or something like that.
I don't remember the Elm Street address, but I should look. That'd be good. That'd probably be better. I should have done that. And then the 100th day of the year. This is a deep cut. Okay. Mm-hmm. The 100th day of the year is April 10th every year. So I vote we celebrate the long forgotten 80s cartoon and action figure toy property Centurions that day to celebrate the retro nostalgia of the Centurions, the fighting force trio that could have little attachments on them. And anyway, that was a stretch. But I did my part.
You could get people to drive around town blasting the Centurion's theme song from their cars. It'd be awesome.
There you go. That'd have been a good plan. But hey, I guess for now we'll just have to deal with the other 1,000 other made up holidays that exist in the world.
Well, I for one can't wait for the next one, which is going to be tomorrow. I could have sworn there was a sixth. There was a sixth thing for Star Wars, but I think it's because like Mark Hamill does like a lot of like weird things online, and I think they're like one year he was doing like every day of May was like a Star Wars day, and so but who knows, I'll have to look and see what tomorrow is. But until then, if you could do us a favor and leave us some feedback either on your podcast app or on the YouTube channel, and give us 5-star rating or give us a thumbs up, whatever you want to do. That's only if you want to do it. Don't tell them I'm pushing you or nothing like that. We want those to be legit.
Yes.
But you can always hit us up on Twitter at @wayback_attack. Me, myself, I am at BE Grantham. Preston, where can people find you?
I am at Squared Stiff on Twitter. And I actually just ordered some Wayback Attack die cut stickers. They're on delay because of all the things that are going on. But when those come in, what I'd like to do is offer a thank you to people who give us a positive rating on iTunes or who contact us through email and gives us some of those stickers away as a little perk. So
Nice.
We're looking out for you. We hope you look out for us. I thank you guys for listening to the show. And if we missed anything, if we have a celebration day that we need to look at in the future, do a whole podcast episode, let us know.
Yep. And there are other ideas for merch, but if you have something specific that you really, really want, hit us up at our email at waybackattackshow@gmail.com. And then that way we can for sure look at it and see if it's possible for us to do. Like, I know like hockey jerseys and stuff like that could be expensive. So,
Face tattoos.
Yeah. Oh, that would be sweet. We could both get matching ones. So, but until then, this is Wayback Attack.